Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. This is ASE. We're broadcasting tonight from Leesburg, Virginia. I'm looking over in our questions pane. If you can hear me okay and can see my screen okay, go ahead and please type in and just say, yes, I can see fine, can hear fine. Just doing a quick sound check here. All right, looks like I'm getting a lot of yeses back. Okay, good. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. And thanks again for attending. Tonight we'd like to introduce you to ASE's new Auto Maintenance and Light Repair Certification, designated as G1. It's the newest credential to ASE's stable of certification offerings, and it represents a bit of a departure from other ASE certification specialties to date. I just want to mention real quickly while it comes to mind that tonight's event is being recorded for review at a later date and time, so keep that in mind, and it might also be something you'd want to pass along to one of your colleagues if they weren't able to attend tonight's session. Again, thanks for attending. I'd like to take a moment and introduce you to tonight's webinar team. First, let me introduce you to Don Du. He's our moderator guy. Don will help manage your questions in the virtual arena to help keep things on track. Don's also a great resource on the ASE program and can help with our questions tonight. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Julie White from Customer Service. She's here for the specifics on some of your questions about G1 and the ASE program overall. Finally, I'd like to express my personal welcome and thanks for joining us in this evening in this webinar. My name is Dave Kappert, and I'm tonight's webinar presenter. Let's take a minute now to go over the online interface. It's important for you to get the most out of tonight's session by understanding what you're going to see and how you can interact with us. First, make sure your speakers are turned on and set to a comfortable listening level. It sounds like most of you out there that's already happened since you've responded positively to the fact that you can hear me okay. The content of the presentation appears in the viewer window that you see on the left side of your screen. Although you won't be able to speak directly with us on this end, you can enter your questions in the questions box on the control panel. And that's that pane that you see the circle around there where questions go. That's how you can interact with us here. We invite your participation during tonight's session to make it as interactive as possible. We'll handle your questions at convenient commercial breaks, if you will, during the event, but by all means, pop them into the questions box so we can get to them when able. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I just want to talk for a brief moment about mobile devices since we seem to get more and more attendees attending using this type of technology. While mobile devices certainly offer a lot of convenience, they also come with some compromises. On both Apple and iOS, you can communicate with us via chat. That is, you can send questions to us on those portable devices, which is great. The only thing is, the only shortcoming on that technology yet at this point is the polling questions that we are going to put out to you tonight. To get a little bit of a background on you as the attendees, you're not going to be able to respond to those on those portable devices. So I apologize for that, but that's really an issue of the software development more than a lack of capability on ASE's end. And if you don't yet have a specific app for that device, visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to go and download that and get it installed. We're not going to wait, but it doesn't take you that long to get it installed and get going. Okay, now for tonight's first poll. We're just looking for a little bit about you in terms of what category best represents you tonight as an attendee. What role do you fulfill best out of these four? Student, technician, employer, educator. Okay, we're going to give this about another minute yet. I'm looking at the poll numbers coming in. won't be able to get 100%, I realize, again, because of the mobile devices. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, at this point, I'm going to close it out. And now I'll go ahead and I'll share those results with you. So I don't really need to, go through the percentages with you. We've got a good group of technicians, large population of educators here, employers and some students as well. Good to know. And now I just want to go through an overview, kind of the framework of tonight's presentation. We're going to talk about the background of G1. We're going to get into the test development aspect of it. Talk a little bit about the test questions. And we'll get into test content. And we'll get into a little bit of information on the certification equation for this new credential. We want to talk about experience. And as I mentioned before, I know you've got a lot of questions tonight. I will take them later in the presentation, but again, if they come to mind, go ahead and pop them into the questions pane, and we'll answer them when we can get to them. We often find in these sessions that there's a trend that many people have the same thing on their mind, and that's a good thing. We may share some of that with the audience as we go through. All right, the background into the new G1 certification is the fact that more and more maintenance work is being done in shops now as far as the general work that goes on. I realize there's specialty shops, but as far as just general across the board, our research points out that as much as 70% of the work focuses on maintenance and light repair. And in the fact, or because of that fact, the G1 certification seed was kind of planted in terms of an assessment and certification that would represent that type of work these days. Okay, everything that ASE does is really driven by the industry, and again, taking into mind that 70% stat, the new ASE maintenance and light repair certification specialty was developed by industry experts and facilitated by ASE staff. We'll talk more in just a few minutes about the workshop itself. Some have described it as an entry-level credential. It depends on how you look at it. This is really an early career job-ready credential, and it's based on 1 year experience. Really, the test is not light on technical content. We'll share, once we get into the content section, that I'll share with you some of the tasks that are matched to the various content areas of this certification area. And back in the winter 2012 test session, ASE held a pilot test of the G1 with about 1,000 technicians, and that was kind of our proving ground, if you will, of running this exam out to the general public for comment to see how our test questions performed, how the overall structure of the test performed, and look at pass scores and all the other things that go on the analytical side of the certification exam. The first general testing for G1 will be available in 2013 during the July-August test window, and registration for this new exam opens up on June 1st, which is this coming Saturday. Now let's spend a minute on test development. Multiple workshops were held over the last few years exploring the feasibility of G1 and working with industry experts to identify and define a wide range of tasks. Our workshops and the resulting tests are really subject matter expert-driven process, which consists of about 15 to 20 subject matter experts, with approximately 40% of them working practitioners and the remainder working in other technical disciplines. It's important to note that ASE's role in the workshops is facilitation. The direction and content of the workshop results in a final product driven by the subject matter experts themselves. It all begins with a job analysis where the subject matter experts, and again with ASE facilitating, go through and see if there's really enough meat to, in this particular case, G1, but the same would apply to every one of the ASE exams as far as putting together the framework of a test. And again, I mentioned the pilot test where we had 1,000 people that had taken it back in the winter testing session. Let's talk about test questions. All of the questions on the G1, as well as the other ASE exams, are all 4-option multiple choice questions. Some are illustrated and some are not. This version of the G1 that's going to roll out for right now is going to have a total of 65 questions on it. 55 of those questions will be scored. Now you're wondering what the discrepancy is between 65 total and 55 scored. There's an additional 10 questions on the exam that are offered for statistical research purposes. Now you may wonder, why is it that we have those in there? They're unscored, but why don't you know? If we were to tell you which 10 were not scored, then you may skip them, or you may not treat them with the same weight as you would the scored items. So we do this because we track data on every one of our questions that goes in front of a candidate. So that's why they're sort of embedded in the overall test. All of the questions on the G1 exam, as well as on all of the ASE exams, are knowledge of skills based. They are not theory based. And you have a test window of 90 minutes. And of course, now that ASE is all on computer-based testing, this new G1 will be exclusively offered on computer-based, along with the rest of the family of ASE certification exams. Now let's just briefly go over the test specifications, which are really the framework, the guts of the G1 exam. The first category is engine systems, and all of you I welcome to please download our study guide. You'll see the URL on the bottom will also be shown in the resources at the end of the webinar tonight. But you can see the comprehensive list of all the tasks that are covered under engine systems on this test, and that's what the questions are written around. So for example, there are tasks on here such as inspect, replace, and adjust drive belts, tensioners, and pulleys. Inspect and replace engine cooling system and heater system hoses, pipes, and fittings. And I'm hopping around. These are in no particular order. I'm just giving a few examples. Perform air induction throttle service. Next category then is B, automatic transmissions and transaxles. And here some sample tasks are road test the vehicle to normal operation, retrieve and record diagnostic trouble codes, inspect and replace CV boots, axles, drive shafts, U-joints, drive axle joints, and seals. Inspect and replace powertrain mounts, and replace fluid and filters. Okay, under C, manual drivetrains and axles. We have things like inspect, adjust, replace, and bleed external hydraulic clutch slave release cylinder. Inspect and replace external seals. Inspect, adjust, and replace transmission transaxle, external shifter assembly, shift linkages, brackets, bushings, grommets, pivots, and levers. Moving over to suspension and steering. Inspect, adjust, and replace power steering pump belts, tensioners, and pulleys. Identify power steering pump noises, vibration, and fluid leakage. Flush, fill, and bleed power steering system. And again, I'm just giving some examples. And then moving right along with brakes. Check for poor stopping, pulling, dragging noises, high or low pedal and hard or spongy pedal. Verify operation of brake warning light and ABS warning light. Inspect brake system wiring damage and routing. Bleed and or flush hydraulic system. And yes, there is electrical on this test as well. Things here that would be covered are disarm, re-enable airbag, verify lamp operation, check continuity and resistances and electrical circuits and components, interpret readings, perform slow-fast battery charge in accordance with manufacturer's recommendation, perform starter current draw tests, and interpret readings. And again, those are just some examples, I should say, of each one of these content areas. And under heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, we have visually check AC components for signs of leaks, check drive belt for wear and tension, adjust or replace as needed, inspect and clean evaporator drains, so again, these are the test specifications showing the content areas on the G1 and some of the tasks I just read off to you, or some of the sample tasks. Again, I encourage you to please download the study guide, which is at www.ase.com/studyguides, and you see the auto maintenance and light repair study guide available there. That's in its own standalone booklet for right now. It's not in a booklet with the other auto series tests at this point. Okay, now let's just talk about the certification equation for a minute. Like all ASE certifications, it requires a passing score on the certification exam. But the difference here is that with the G1, it requires a minimum of 1 year experience or a reasonable equivalent, just like you can with your regular 2-year certification experience. You can put some formal training in. The same will be true with G1. So again, I've stated at least 1 year hands-on work experience. And you can see here through the color coding things that would apply. So automobile repair technician, yes. Medium heavy school bus transit technician. I'm not going to read it all off to you, but I think you get the idea of what would qualify for experience in this direction. Educational substitutes are cited here, along with some of the OEM-sponsored co-op or apprenticeship programs, which would help you fulfill that 1 year experience for G1. And that experience reporting form is located here at this URL, or you can just simply, when you go on our website, you go into customer service section under download forms and you will find it there. And one thing I just did want to mention is that yes, the G1 is a new certification specialty, and along with its 1 year experience is a little bit different, but it's really part of a bigger picture, more from working all the way from entry level up through professional technician, well established in a career. As you'll notice here, if you look at this chart, ASE student certification does not have an experience requirement, but it has a 2-year duration. And ASE student certification is a program for students that are in automotive programs within various schools. Now, maintenance and light repair, the G1 that we're discussing tonight, that's the first one that kicks in with a 1 year experience. The duration is the same as it's always been for ASE. It's 5 years. That applies here as well. And then the traditional ASE cert exams that most everyone's been familiar with for many, many years, that's still a 2 year experience. It's still a 5 year duration. But we did now, with L1 and L2, we've bumped up the experience requirement for those advanced level exams to 3 years. And the duration of that certification remains the same at 5 years. Okay, I want to throw another poll your way. And what I'm wondering is, how do you plan to prepare for the G1 test? That is, that you're going to take it. just wait momentarily here while those results come in. We're up to about 40% right now. Still waiting, still got a few stragglers coming in yet. Getting close. Appreciate everybody's patience. Just a few more. I want to try to get as accurate a snapshot of the cross-section of tonight's attendees as I can. All right, well, I guess that's going to be close enough. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll out. And then let me share those results with you. We got some of you, a few of you, that is, attend a specialized instructor-led training program, but that result might be just because of the fact this is new and there may not be a lot of knowledge or programs yet available for it. And about a third of you with the self-study training. It's good to see that over 40% of you are putting credence in developing a game plan by first evaluating the study guide. I encourage you to do that because that's where everything starts. That's the framework that the test is built on. That's the framework that the questions are derived from. So that gives you a really good starting place. And the 23% saying they're unsure, I can certainly understand that yet because this is new. I just did want to pass along that ASE will do everything in its power to continue to inform you going forward about new training opportunities or any new developments related to the G1 to help support this as it rolls out. Okay, so let me hide that. Now, you've been patient enough to put up with my questions tonight. What I really like to do is get the bulk of what tonight's session is, I hope, is your questions and what's on your mind. Now, I know that the chat window's been going furiously as I've been giving some of the notes on G1. Again, this was just slated to be a brief introduction. I wanted to give you the essence of the meat of what's with this program, but I mean, it has a few differences, but it's substantially the same as most all the ASE certifications that have been built in the past. Now, Julie White is furiously working away in our chat window on some of your questions. And Don, I'm just wondering if you're monitoring that window over there once, if maybe there's anything there that we can either answer individually or jointly in terms of that seem to be common threads with tonight's attendees.
Yeah, Dave, there have been a number of questions that are coming in from quite a few of the same questions coming in from various people. A couple of things. First one, how you said this before, but say it again if you would. How can people access again in the future? It's going to be available online. When and how will they find
this
that?
webinar that we're talking about tonight, you mean?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
The recorded event, yeah. What you will do is within a couple of days, you're going to get a follow-up email about this session. If you attended, and even those that didn't attend it will also get a follow-up email. We'll have a link to where the recorded version is, so you can go view it. And then after 30 days, what we do typically here at ASE is we then take the recorded event and we put it over on the news and multimedia section on the ASE website. We've got all the webinars to date archived over there, other than the one that's 30 days old. So we put them there so you can continue to go back and look at them.
Okay, and thank you, Dave. We also get a lot of questions that apparently are from educators out there thinking about how it will impact them as instructors, how it will impact their students and such. Let me go back and cover a couple of things again. One is that certainly we're going to provide some confusion here because we talked about the maintenance light repair G1 test. That's, again, as Dave says, this is the one that's offered at the Prometric Test Centers and requires 1 year work experience. And we have a student certification test series as well that's delivered at the school and proctored by someone other than the instructor at the school. And this is also this year a student certification, and we've introduced a maintenance and light repair test there as well. It sounds the same, but it is different because this is developed specifically for students who have completed a similar program, similar tasks but not identical, in their school, predominantly high school, but certainly post-secondary as well. And the student certification does not require any experience at all. Just need to pass the test. That certification is valid for 2 years, and of course it cannot be renewed, and don't want to get too sidetracked on that. With the idea being that as they enter the workforce then, after they get a year of experience then, and pass the G1, maintenance and light repair, then they get certified as a G1 technician. Now, true with all students coming out of a formal training program, they can substitute basically on a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 years of school, or up to 2 years of school for up to 1 year of work experience to meet their ASE requirements. However, for G1, it's still 2-to-1, but they can only substitute up to half of the experience, so they can only trade that off for up to 6 months. So they'll still have to document 6 months of actual experience in the shop, in addition to the schoolwork here. Of course, it still can go 2-to-1 for a full year for the regular on the ASE test. Okay. Then we've also had some questions about instructor requirements, whether or not they're required to be certified in G1. To be honest, I don't know. I was hustling over here on the NATEF website to see if I could find it real quick, but I had to get back here. But the NATEF standards would certainly define that. I'm not sure if G1 is a requirement yet, but maybe some of the instructors out there can, on your question, can let us know. Maybe they can answer that for me. Okay. And let's see. I've lost something here. Let me expand the window here again. Sorry for the interruption here.
Someone in the audience, Don, had asked for me to put the chart back up, and I know that's probably obvious to most everyone, but sometimes people are looking at their chat window or may have minimized, things on their screen, multitasking. I want to call everyone's attention to the fact that I did, in fact, put that chart back up so that everybody can view it again to look at the hierarchy.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, again, like I said, a lot of the questions here, obviously it's a little confusing here with the student certification and the ASE level certification, both tests having the same name. Of course, with the student certification, they have an engine repair just as A1, and the regular auto series, and so on. So we've had that parallelism forever. But again, the experience requirements, those are set by the ASE Board of Directors, and I say the idea is that we're building, or they are building a progression here of stair step, whereas up to this point, even without student certification, there wasn't any place to go except for waiting for the 2 years of experience or after work here. Let's see. Another question here. I don't know what the answer is on this. Perhaps Julie, if you have it, about the Blue Seal shops, how will that be affected for the Blue Seal shops with the G1? Is that figured into that? I know you don't have your mic on, but perhaps you could do a send to all if you have a response to that. Dave, do you have an idea on that one?
I don't, Don. That's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it goes unanswered, we'll keep it in the chat log, Don. I do try to commit to the fact of following up with everybody on questions to make sure that we're answering our fair share for everybody here.
Okay. Yeah. Again, here's another question just came up about state specific. Again, we've had some questions about whether or not we're working with states and publishers and such. Again, ASE does not obviously offer training directly. The idea being is that they work to support NATEF, that this works with the industry to establish the standards for training programs and such, and we leave it up to the training programs to provide the training. It'd be a little bit of a conflict of interest if ASE was also offering training courses and such, or training materials. Same thing with publishers and such, but all the publishers have the task list. I spoke with a number of representatives from publishing companies about a month ago. Many of them are working on materials for a classroom and for technicians to help with G1 test as well as the maintenance light repair level for NATEF programs. So even though we're not working directly with them, we're certainly aware that they're working on it and provided the task list and such for them to work with. Let me take a look here, see if I can find anything on the instructor requirements. Apologize, I don't have that.
Don, I'm just going to break in and punctuate this real quickly while you're going ahead there. I just want to, we seem to get a lot of questions on the dates of availability and things, and sometimes the availability dates overlap one another, and I think sometimes, I know speaking for myself, I can even get confused on this because our registration and testing dates are two separate things. But anyway, the summer 2013 test registration opens on June 1st and runs through August 21st. June 1st is this coming Saturday, just to put things in context with May running out through the end of the week. The test dates, that's when you're able to actually take the G1 as well as other exams, would be July 1st through August 31st. And again, that's for our summer 2013 test dates. That's both registration and testing.
I'm sorry, I can't find the information on the instructor requirements here.
I've seen the question appear once or twice here at least. There seems to be some curiosity revolving the implication of G1 into Master Tech. I do not know of that to be the case, that's even being considered at this point. I've heard nothing to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that the G1 is not incorporated in the NATEF standards yet. That's probably why I can't find it, because it's just now really being available, so they can't make it a requirement until it's actually available. But certainly I would keep paying attention to NATEF, and they'll announce it, I'm sure, if and when it comes about.
Don, here's a good one, and I think this applies to G1 just as well. We always get this question when it comes to the ASE certification about taking the exam, earning a passing score on the exam, but not yet having the appropriate experience accrued to earn certification. And this is an opportune time for me just to reinforce the fact that ASE certification, and I'll go back to that one slide there that I had shown, was its certification equation for G1 is 1 year of experience and a passing score on G1. So somebody could take the test, that's true, and if they had not yet accrued the experience, then they would not be conferred with certification. They would be conferred with a passing score. When they did get the appropriate experience together and submitted proof of it, then their certification would be awarded from that time forward. So just to be clear, if a year had passed from the time that they had first taken the test and didn't yet have that experience in, that would really at that point be a 4-year certification, because it's certification when the combination of the two components is in our records.
We had a question about the similarity between the maintenance light repair G1 and the maintenance light repair student level. First question was a number of questions on the test. I think you said there are 55 scored items on the G1. Very similar, there are 60 scored items on the student version of maintenance light repair. And likewise, there are going to be in this case up to 15 non-scored pretest items included on the form. Since the test was offered for the first time through the student program this spring, it was basically offered as a double-linked test, and the cut score study has just been completed, so scores will be posted fairly soon. But again, it's the student version of the maintenance light repair. Again, the task lists are similar, but they're not the same. And of course, the calibrations of the test are different because they're intended for slightly different audiences as well. Again, that's part of the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes into developing ASE tests. Right. And here we have a gentleman that says that they just went through the NATEF maintenance light repair certification. There's no mention of G1. Thanks for that confirmation. I say I realize that I was searching for it here since the G1 wasn't actually available at the time that NATEF rolled out the MLR level of program accreditation, and they couldn't make it a requirement for instructors yet. But like I said, it could be in the future, but again, I don't want to speak for NATEF on that.
Don, I've just popped back up the experience factor slide. We seem to have, again, a lot of experience questions, especially with the fact that there's a little bit of an equivalency, that's being discussed here in terms of what they might get for OEM-sponsored co-op or apprenticeship type of program or an educational substitute. And again, everybody, what you're seeing on the screen does not in any way, shape, or form represent the entire experience form. It's just basically a snapshot of the components that really more or less apply to G1.
We've had a couple of questions again related to the MLR G1 and MLR student version. Again, these tests were developed somewhat in parallel in terms of time. However, they were each built for different purposes. The student version is aligned specifically with the NATEF standards in the task list for maintenance light repair, and the G1 is specifically developed by the ASE process with industry subject matter experts, again with the slightly different individual in mind as they define that. So even though they carry the same name, they do differ slightly, and again they're calibrated to that different population as well. And like I say, it's similar with all the other tests as well. I said earlier there's an A1 engine repair for ASE 2-year experienced technicians, and there's an engine repair for student certification. Again, even though they have the same names, slightly different task lists, certainly a different target audience, and different calibrations on the test.
What else are you seeing there, Don? I'm just scrolling through some of these myself.
Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of them related to NATEF and new requirements in NATEF rolled out here. As I mentioned before, on the student certification MLR, since it was offered for the first time, it was a double-link test, and that meant there was 120 questions that were presented to the student, but only 60 were selected and scored. Don't want to get into all the details of the statistical analyses and the cut score process, but ultimately 60 items were selected for the form and then scored from that. We just completed a cut score session. The cut score for the student version is 31 out of 60, correct, to pass. I'm not sure what it is on the G1 version of it here, but again, since we have so many educators in the audience, I thought I'd share that.
Don, I'm just going to throw something out real quick, and I do encourage, again, everybody to download the study guide, and perhaps many of you have already while we've been discussing some of these other questions here, but one of the things that has come up is out of the various content areas, how many questions are there And I just want to call to your attention that, like in content area A, engine systems, there's 9 questions in the test on that. That represents 16% of the test. B, automatic transmission transaxle, there's 4 questions. That's 7% of the test. Manual drivetrain and axles, 6 questions representing 11%. Suspension and steering, it's 13 questions representing 24%. Brakes, 11 questions, 20%. Electrical, 8 questions, 15%. And finally, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, 4 questions and 7%. So as somebody had mentioned, it's heavily weighted towards one or the other, but suspension and steering and brakes, statistically have the most questions by those 2 content areas right there. I guess, and then descending from there would be engine systems, electrical, manual drivetrain and axles, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and automatic transmission transaxle would be last there, tied at 4 questions. So maybe that'll help you gain some sense of proportion to the way that the test content is allocated.
Yeah, one of the gentlemen here reminded us that the instructor certification requirements can be answered on the natef.org website under the FAQs. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Dave, do you have the test specifications handy? You may have had that up a minute ago when I was looking at the Q&A screen.
Yeah, I don't. I can back up and get to just that part of it if that's what you want to see.
Okay. Yeah, we had a question about weighting different areas, and really the way to answer a question about weighting, every question counts the same, but I see your slide doesn't have the number of questions or percent
Right.
per test. But in the prep guide that you can download for off the website, along with it, that is part of the task list, you can see how many questions by content area, and that'll give you a good idea how to weight the different areas.
Mm-hmm. But it's definitely steering and suspension and brakes are the 2 highest content areas.
Yes.
We had a question here, Don, I saw on scoring. It was something to the effect that you have to pass each content area in order to pass the certification test. It's basically the passing score is based off cut score. You got to have so many right in order to pass. So you may not
Correct.
do as well in one area, but you might do exceptional in another area to offset that.
Yes, and each test has a specific cut score study for it, and so the cut score is set uniquely for each different test, so it's not going to be the same across the board. Had some questions. Actually, it relates both to student certification as well as the G1, and then it's the value that employers face on see this, both the student certification and the G1. I said both these programs are new. The student certification was just changed this year, so that's brand new, and certainly it's not known 100% across the industry, just like the G1. And so obviously ASE and NATEF are doing what they can with their resources to get the information out there. The board of directors of both ASE and NATEF, and of course are representatives of many companies and segments in the industry, and they communicate it out through their networks and such. But of course the other part of the equation, I guess, is through our technicians and educators and such to help communicate through their channels what this can do for the employers and their community and such. So everyone's really part of the communication of this new program. So no, it's not known 100%. I hate to say it, but after 40 years, thereabouts, ASE is not known 100% across the industry, probably 99%, but certainly that's the nature of a voluntary program. So anyone else out there, as you work with your advisory committees or your bosses or your technicians or other folks, hopefully this is you see how you can use this to your advantage and value as well, both the G1 and then the student version of that. One question about the, oh, there you go. Thanks, Dave. One question up here about, will G1 be part of the L1 requirement? No, it won't. That won't change.
Now you can see a more detailed look at the test specifications and pass lists on the screen. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to scroll through this to the next page so you can just look at the complexion of this test makeup. And by the way, in the back of the G1 prep guide, there is a few sample questions in there, which again are pretty much customary for the ASE study guides.
Yeah, we get a number of questions again about the work experience. Again, for the students, when they want, whether it's a secondary program or post-secondary program, they can trade their school experience for work experience on a 2-to-1 ratio for up to 1/2 of the required work experience for G1 or the regular auto certs. The max they can get would be 1 year. So as you look at the L1, L2 that require 3 years of work experience, it would still require a minimum of 2 years of in-the-field experience.
And we've gotten some questions as well, Don, on the reporting of the experience. And we do have an experience reporting form. Again, it'll be shown in the resources here towards the end of this presentation. But that is a form that needs to be filled out and sent in order to be granted certification, because that experience has to be confirmed. Here, it's not a simple online form that you just type something into and you send it away. It does require us to take a look at that.
Okay, again, a question or confusion about the G1 maintenance light repair versus a student maintenance light repair, what the different audiences are. When you consider a student coming out of high school, or for example, they have no work experience, and so they, even though they've had experience in the shop and perhaps on some vehicles and some trainers and such, but they haven't been able to go out in the field and apply that experience on various technologies, various vehicle platforms and things like that. So the G1, those technicians have been out in the field for at least a year. They've seen different product lines and such, so they are at a different level, or should be at a different level. So those issues come into consideration when those tests were being developed. That's why they are two different tests. Just like the students in high school and an engine repair class. the tasks are a lot the same, but again, they haven't had a chance to apply that and see different scenarios, different product lines, and things like that. So just a different level of preparedness and experience for those kids versus the working text. And Dave, my understanding is that certainly if you're already an experienced certified technician and you take the G1 test, you will not need to document your experience again for the G1. That's already covered under your current automobile experience requirement that you've already got documented.
Yeah, that sounds right. Again, everyone, watch your inboxes for a follow-up email that will, talk about your attendance to this session, or those that you work with that may not have attended will get one just as well, stating that they didn't show up, but there will be a link in there to the archived webinar that will be posted online. And note the important dates. When we close this session out, you'll be presented with a brief survey. We'd like to know what you think of tonight's session, and questions like along the lines of what else could we do in terms of topics going forward. Don, anything else that you see at this point? We should probably wrap this up. And it's almost 8 o'clock here.
No, I guess I say a lot of the questions we've hit. We do have some of the same questions coming in again, but I don't have anything else here right at the moment. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Can you still take the test if you're Master Tech? Yes, of course.
Looking at some of the other ones.
The resources, again, all this information can be gleaned off the ASE.com website or the ASEStudentCertification.com website if you're interested in the student side. And then, of course, all you educators out there are already familiar with NATEF.org. And again, the G1 is not part of the NATEF standards yet for instructor requirements. Again, they revisit that on a periodic basis, so that could change in the future, but it'd just be not speculation at this point. The student test, for those instructors who had their students take the maintenance light repair this year, yeah, the test will be available in the fall and then next spring as well. And from this point forward, now that we have a cut score and have all the statistical analysis done, the test will have instant scoring, and it will only be 60 questions with 60 scored questions with an additional 15 non-scored pretest items. And everyone, thank you very much. I apologize if we couldn't get to all your questions here, and we'll go back through here and see which ones we missed and see if we can respond back somehow. Thank you again.
Thanks again for attending, everyone.